folks, my name is Warbass. Today we're going to talk about this. It's my same two modular synthesizers, A case and my B case. All the modules are the same, although if you watched a recent video of mine, Data Bender and Polygogo are in here and Nautilus is not. Sorry, Nautilus. You're probably used to seeing my two cases on my record cabinet side by side. On one side of the room, it's where I have my kind of top-down filming setup with lights and all my patch cables as well. What you might not have known is that on the opposite side of the room, I've had for about a year a matriarch just on a cheap regular synth stand that's on wheels. Now, since the matriarch actually fits where my modular synths typically sit, that frees up the matriarch stand whenever I want to do one of these live sets to hold the two cases. All I needed was some kind of surface for them to sit on. I tested this out with an old IKEA shelf, a piece of plywood basically, to see if it would make sense, if it would work, to figure out what size piece of wood I would need. And then literally I spent, I think, $10 at Home Depot for a 2x2 piece of like 3/4 inch thick plywood. I cut 4 inches off one side, so it's 24 inches by 20 inches. I painted one side of it and the edges black with Plasti Dip, so it's kind of got this rubber grippy feeling instead of feeling like plywood after I sanded it. And then I mounted to the top some sticky rubber mat that I had laying around from an old project, and added some corner pieces, these little metal angle brackets that are meant to reinforce shelves, I think, really to the edge to act as a lip to hold the rubber feet of the black hole cases that I have to make sure that things weren't going to slide off. The other major upgrade I did at the same time was to stop using my old studio monitor isolation foam as the support that angled the two green cases when they're sitting on my record case, which was always kind of a hack. Wobbly if you pushed on one of the corners, you're trying to patch something because the piece of foam didn't extend the whole width of the case. So now I've got, for like 10 bucks each, these really nice foam triangles that I just trimmed a little bit to fit on the gap in between the black rubber mat on this piece of plywood. And they're just friction fit on there really snugly so that I can use them back in the typical place where these synths sit on that record cabinet side by side, and I don't have to deal with that speaker isolation foam anymore at all. The other nice kind of design feature that was kind of a happy accident was the gap in between those two triangles, which is a perfect spot for the power bricks for both synths to sit. And that's one of the things I need to kind of finish up with this is I want to mount a power strip on the other side to make it really clean and easy so I don't trip on a cable as I'm walking around. But it is nice to have that gap in between the synths so that I can rest those in there and decouple the kind of mechanical connection of the power from the electrical one so that I'm not going to tug on the actual jacks that plug into the synths. I recently put up a short kind of test set using the new filming setup and arrangement here. And I've been working on this as an idea for a little while, specifically related to what I'm thinking about doing for July. Trying to do as many live sets as I possibly can, ideally one per day, ideally at least 30 minutes or an hour per set. Deliberately trying to practice that improvisational live sound that I'm going for. And to me, I've always kind of thought that the medium is the message for this stuff. And I have to frankly acknowledge that for the most part, my live performances as they exist in the world will likely be in video form. I record most of these late at night when the whole house is asleep, and it's likely going to be that way for quite a long time. The odds that I'll do a big live set somewhere with an audience are probably pretty low. And so this is kind of my stage. And I think what I want to do is increase the production value to both take advantage of the medium and reflect the kind of output that I want to aspire to have. Now, why would I want the two cases to be back to back like this? You might be thinking that's got to be kind of annoying to have to constantly walk around this thing. And I think it's a couple of reasons. One, maybe practically, it's really hard to film a view when they are side by side that actually shows in a decent level of detail what I'm doing. Because I want to actually make it kind of clear to anyone who's interested what I'm actually triggering and my intent as I'm performing something. The other reason is that I really do think about these two cases as two separate instruments within one kind of setup. So if you watch the previous video, I think there is a single clock coming from the B case to the A case, and then a single stereo signal, the entire B case, into the looper on the A case. And that's it. I'm pretty sure that is the only patching that's happening between them. It is very much B case generating sound, A case grabbing that sound, looping it, and then mangling it completely. The other thing I really like about having them set up in this way is that it's kind of not just obvious at a module level with the framing of a camera, but obvious with where I am standing, what I might be doing next. For anyone who is paying attention closely or interested in that kind of thing, they can kind of get a sense of where something might be going based on where I am moving around this proverbial stage of kind of things. The other thing I thought about when setting this up was what music content in this format, meaning like a video live performance that is the performance, that has captured my attention really well. And I'm going to maybe say this wrong, but the one artist that stands out above pretty much everybody who happens to also be in the modular space is Helen Vogelsinger. Again, I might be Helene. I might be saying the last name wrong. If you're watching my channel, you probably know of her. These incredible settings, often in like abandoned mansions with several, cases set around her as she puts on this really, really incredible performance. The thing that I think helps grab my attention beyond the setting, beyond the music, that I've noticed about her work that I thought was stealable and not copyable, meaning if I take my synths and go try to sit in an abandoned mansion somewhere, that is copying her 100%, right? I don't want to do that. But I think the thing that is something that I can learn from her work is the moving camera. So as she's performing, the camera person is kind of constantly orbiting her, walking around and circling. Now, obviously there's a super smooth, talented camera person there. I'm by myself. I'm not going to have somebody walk around me at all times, but they do make technology now that you can mount on your ceiling that will spin around you at all times. And that was the other kind of happy coincidence of this back-to-back setup with this new kind of non-stage stage of this room, and my moving around on either side, having the camera orbit around as well, being able to really, really well frame each synth one at a time, get a nice detailed view while also upping the kind of production quality and whatnot. All in all, it was a really cheap, simple project using almost everything that I had already laying around. A stand I already had, a single piece of wood, some cheap brackets, some rubber I had, and a really cheap piece of foam. And whenever I want to use it now, I just move the matriarch to where the black hole cases usually sit, free up the stand, grab the piece of wood, set it on top. Those brackets actually extend below a little bit to make it so if I ever do bump it pretty hard. Now, everything's so heavy that it's stable enough that I can roll the thing around completely with just the top. But the metal brackets do extend down a little bit so that if the entire wood platform were to shift over, it would catch the edge on the actual synth stand itself to prevent it from sliding off, while at the same time extending upwards to hold on to the rubber feet of the synths that are at an angle. Neither one of those is really necessary. The weight of the synth on the foam triangle is grippy enough that it just sits there, and the rubber feet at the bottom do meet the rubber mat as well, but it's just an extra little bit of security to make sure that the cases aren't going to slide down and off, and that the entire platform, even though it's very, very grippy and I can roll it by just grabbing it without much worry, isn't going to move around at all either. So that's it for the month of July. You might see this a lot. I might get halfway through it and realize that it's more annoying than it is fun. But so far, my initial tests, all the footage I'm getting back, I'm super happy with. the actual act of making the music is really fun to walk around this thing, to get kind of more physical with the space and deliberate with what I'm going to do next, because I have to really think about where I'm going to be. And that part is very personally satisfying. So if you want to see more of this, I'll put a link to the set I did in my previous video up there, and stay tuned. You'll probably see it a lot, hopefully 31 times in July. I've been thinking more about that, and I might do like a rest day where I recap and critique and digest the previous week's performances. So it might be like 6 days of just music, 1 day of this kind of thing. I don't know. We'll see how I feel about it, see if I have actually something of value to say or a perspective over the course of each week. So that's the project. That's kind of what I've been teasing over the past couple of videos. This is a cat. My name is Warbass, and I will see you next time.